A big primary election in Nebraska ended in victory for Ben Sasse and Pete Ricketts. Sasse won his U.S. Senate GOP primary, and Ricketts captured the Republican nomination for governor. Both men are endorsed by Sarah Palin, and now both will be on the ballot in November. Both Sasse and Ricketts appeared on this program last week. Sarah Palin is backing our friend Colonel Rob Maness in his bid for U.S. Senate in Louisiana. Maness actually wrestles gators in a recent campaign ad, and Palin said if he can wrestle alligators, he'll have no problem cleaning up the swamp in D.C. Gotta love these ads from Palin candidates. Ernst with the Make 'em Squeal spot, and now Maness and his gators. Governor Palin hammered President Obama this past week for using hashtagging tweets as foreign policy. We've all seen it by now. Michelle Obama's photo with a piece of cardboard and a hashtag message regarding the kidnapped Nigerian girls. Palin said, quote, "Diplomacy via Twitter is the lazy, ineffectual, naive, and insulting way for America's leaders to deal with major national and international issues. It's embarrassing," unquote. And Palin again backed up her death panels comments of the past with more examples. She titled the post, "No problem with death panels, not even a smidgen," and then documented several cases proving just how very dangerous Obamacare really is. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page and follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin, USA.
It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
Hey, Susan, welcome back. How are you?
Kevin, I'm doing really well. Nice to be with you.
Now, a narrative we've been hearing really from a lot of the sides of the political spectrum of late is in the Republican Party, it's Tea Party against establishment, Tea Party against establishment. And while that is certainly true in a lot of cases, you see some of the candidates that Sarah Palin has endorsed from the Tea Party ilk, if you will, who have been very successful against those establishment hacks. But you think that's not always the case, that sometimes this is used as a description, but there's really more to it?
Oh, I think absolutely. Now it's getting to the point where if I look at the headlines each day, or as I might scroll through what the news is, what is the article going to be today? Is the Tea Party going to be winning, or is the Tea Party dying? Is the establishment finally putting the nail in the coffin, or, are they on their way out? And I think it's a narrative that's very convenient, to create, and I think that many states are seeing this struggle. But I think the real struggle is very much about power. And I've talked about this before, but you're seeing that social media is having a huge impact on the debate of what is happening in the halls of government, and that's because a lot of these elected officials, the one thing that they do care about is winning re-election. And the one thing that they cannot control is social media. And so the grassroots have a better way now of communicating with one another. It doesn't take millions of dollars. And I also think that your average American now is scratching their head and looking around and thinking, okay, nothing's changing here, and our politicians are all talking about how they're going to make it better, and they're rebelling as well. And so my viewpoint is, I read the paper and I see the narrative that's playing out each day, but then I see what's happening on the ground. And Virginia, as an example, today I left one convention in the part of the state where one of the congressmen there did a good job of turning his people out, but he just took a knife and just stuck it to a lot of the people that had helped get him elected because they didn't agree with him 100%. So he made sure that they were slated off of being able to participate in the nominating process, and slating means that they don't have a vote. They were not seated to take a vote at a convention. And last weekend I was at, another convention that was held in Congressman Eric Cantor's district, where actually the grassroots did win that debate because they had a higher number of people that showed up. And the real struggle, in my opinion, at the grassroots level is they just want to have a voice. And on the other side of that, you have the power structure that many of those who are in elected office, they just want to clamp down and hold on very tightly to the power that they have.
Well, you make a lot of good points. I think of, as you say, the narrative when they say, oh, is the establishment winning? Is the Tea Party winning? The other thing you find humorous from a media standpoint, or even from a lot of politicians or those involved in politics, is they take it, case by case. If you win one primary, they say, oh, the Tea Party's back. Or if you lose one primary, the Tea Party's dead. Not taking into consideration if it's a red or blue state, not taking into consideration if the person has any fundraising capabilities. So they try to play that game. And the social media point you make, Susan, is huge, because that makes me think of Mitch McConnell right away. Everybody talks about, oh, well, he's been around and he's getting some of these big names endorsing him. But when you go on Twitter, what do you see? The hashtag Ditch Mitch all the time. So, whether people end up electing these grassroots folks that they want or not, there's definitely a groundswell out there. There's no doubt about that.
And how does it work in politics? I mean, reality really is what the perception is. And I do think that as I have served in elected office and been through an election and just kind of matured in that and getting to really think about, the authority that you're given by the people, I wish that more of our elected leaders would not fear losing an election and just embrace, this wonderful process that we have in America where the people are able to, they are the government, and that they have a say in the government, and no one owns an office. It doesn't matter how long you've been in that office. It's the people's seat, and I just wish that more of our elected leaders would have a looser grasp on the power that has been put in their hands. I think that would solve a lot of these problems, because if you really get down to the foundation, it really is about power and who is going to hold it.
Well, that goes back to your point about perception again, too. They make it seem as if we work for them, but people have to remember they work for us. Susan Stimson, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin.
Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. On May 15th, President Obama dedicated the 9/11 Museum in New York City. In his speech, he recognized the people who innocently died and those who sacrificed their lives to save others. That part of his speech was beautiful. Here we tell their story so that generations yet unborn will never forget. That is certainly true. The museum stands so that generations to follow will understand what happened and never forget and never let it happen again. That's the part that has me bothered. I don't think the president understands what happened on 9/11, and if he does, he sure doesn't show the kind of strong leadership that will help prevent it from ever happening again. In his speech, he never once mentioned who did this to us by name. He never said that it was radical Islamic extremists, terrorists, yes, terrorists, who killed over 3,000 innocent people. He never mentioned that Islamic extremists must be stopped because they will do anything to destroy America. Instead, Obama's attitude is one of complacency and understanding. Proof of that is found in the statement made by his State Department about the 300 Nigerian girls kidnapped by the barbaric Islamic terrorists who threatened to sell them into slavery. Instead of immediately sending in special forces to find and rescue them, we get the State Department spokesperson, and I quote, "The United States has already been very forthcoming and clear about the kind of approach that needs to be taken for counterterrorism," the official said. "There can't just be a military response. You have to have a holistic response. You have to deal with legitimate grievances that might be in a region." With this kind of attitude, I fear for our nation. But then I remember that the American people are strong and that eventually we can repair the harm that this president has done to America. At least I hope so. This is Sarah Steelman for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Commonwealth Common Sense and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. So just head to mamagrizzlyradio.com, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Visit mamagrizzlyradio.com for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, follow along on Twitter at Mama Grizz Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Susan B. Stimson, and at Sarah_Steelman. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Susan Stimson, and everyone here at Mama Grizzly Radio. Thanks to Joni Ernst, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.